The What to Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Hi, Samantha. Welcome to What to Next podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk to you.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to.
Well, I have a book coming out and I'm trying to write the next book. And so life is busy.
Yeah, you write a random thriller, like domestic, books are just kind of like bingeable. Like you want to just keep reading them, So,
hopefully, yes, that's the goal.
Yeah. So talk to us about Twisted Love Story. What is the elevator pitch?
Twisted Love Story is a thriller about a relationship. Yeah. And so Wes and Ivy have been in a very dramatic relationship for 10 years. They break up and get back together all the time. It's kind of their thing and they love it. So neither one is trying to stop the pattern. The problem is that they're a little bit like a tornado and they just sort of barrel through, and other people get drawn up in their drama and pulled into their whirlwind. And other people sort of insert themselves into their whirlwind the same way people will try to insert themselves in your relationship or give you opinions or tell you what you should do. And so no relationship is in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And neither is Wes and Ivy's. And sometimes very bad things happen. And in this case, there's now a detective looking into them. And that is where the story begins.
So what was the process of writing the story, taking into account, toxic relationships, people having an opinion about it, a detective, adding those layers of, of taking the notch from regular notch to high knob, 100 times more,
Right. Well, I always try to take something very normal and take it to the extreme, but within it, because to me, that's entertaining to read. That's a fun story to read when something is to the extreme. I think it's why we read thrillers. Most of us, hopefully, will never encounter a murder or a murdered body. And so that right there is already something unusual for the majority of people. So for this story, I wanted to really make the relationship a character in the book. And that character, that relationship is what drives the story. Mm-hmm. And they have a very dramatic relationship. I don't really label it. I don't even use the word toxic in my life, let alone in my book. So what other people want to call it is up to them. Everybody will bring their own opinion to it. Yeah. Everybody will have their own way to describe it based on their own experiences in relationships. And that's the way I wanted it, so that it gives people something to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's each person has their own narrative, and whether it's childhood trauma or 20s trauma, how they look at relationships, whether it's they always had pretty pleasant time or had something was emotionally investment and things were just going south, they bring their own experience into the books and try to whether relate to it or be oh no, this is a warning sign. This is definitely no, do not pass go here. I do not want to have this experience,
Exactly. I've heard from early readers that they run the gamut. Some people say it reminds them of a relationship they used to be in. Other people say they would never be in it. That kind of relationship wouldn't even appeal to them. So everybody has their own opinion. And that's one of the great things about reading is as readers, we bring ourselves to the book. Mm-hmm. And that's how our opinion gets formed based on our own life experiences and which parts resonate with us, which parts don't resonate with us. So I think that their relationship to me is definitely twisted, but whatever else you think about it is up to you to use your own judgment on it. Call it whatever you want.
Yeah. I love this. All right. So let's talk about your reading life and your writing. Were you like growing up or like were you reading like, just mystery thrillers or like something, or was it something you later in life you discovered the genre and then decided, you know what, this is a fun genre, whether it's inspiration from true crime, TV, movies, books that led you to start writing these stories?
No, thrillers were definitely part of my reading growing up because my family members read them. So they were always around, whether it was John Grisham or Michael Crichton or Mary Higgins Clark. They were always around the house. So it was definitely something I read growing up. And I was a big reader as a kid. All writers are readers. That's how we start. So
Yeah.
I didn't always write thrillers. My early writing, I sort of jumped around and wrote all sorts of things, and then sort of became full circle back to thrillers, which was a natural fit for me given how much I read them.
Yeah, I love this. I love the fact that like, you tried out like different genres and then go full circle to something, a genre that you had, an interest or were surrounded by positive osmosis, over time and giving
Mhm.
you that place in the world,
Yes.
and having your voice being, reflected in this, twisted love stories, and
Right,
relationships,
exactly.
because we got the My Lovely Wife, which is another relationship book. So,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
definitely.
so
Definitely. I think relationships, I mean, this is where our strongest feelings come in is with the people we're closest to. So it is
yeah,
the most uh, obvious place where bad things could happen because a betrayal means so much more and is so much more damaging when it's the person you're closest to. So when you mix a relationship with a betrayal, any type of betrayal, it's perfect for a thriller.
yeah, I love this. All right, let's talk some book recommendations. Do you have any books to recommend our listeners to pick up?
Oh, there's so many.
I
there's
know.
there's so many good books out there. Um, One that just came out is by Amy Suter Clark, Lay Your Body Down, which has
Mhm.
gotten fantastic reviews. I read an early copy of it and loved it. Ashley Winstead, I love everything Ashley Winstead writes. Her last book was called The Last Housewife, and her next one comes out in the fall. Um, I love Carolyn Kepney's and her You series, of
Yeah,
course. I think it's fantastic. Everything Mary Kubica writes is fantastic. May Cobb writes great summer thrillers,
yeah.
with a very beachy, summery vibe to them, which is great for this time of year. Gosh, I mean, I can just keep listing authors.
No, this is
Yeah.
great. I think like this is a great starter. Like once we're done with your backlist, like you give us like a couple authors that we can go back and do their backlist, and have them just to keep us entertained this summer, but also in the fall, when people are
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, must read, thrillers. So it is all good stuff. So
And I would also say Hannah Morrissey. I love her. Her books are very dark and very gritty, and they would probably have more of a fall vibe to them. But they're dark and they're very, very good thrillers.
well, I'm adding that for sure. So Samantha, tell us where we can find you online.
My website is samanthadowning.com, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, now on Threads, at S. Marie Downing. But if you just search my name, you'll find it. I'm mostly on Instagram, and you can find most of the latest news and any appearances or anything. I always post on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you, Samantha, for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other book recommendations, please visit watchrenextblog.com. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.